So deciding where you're going to teach is often one of the biggest parts of becoming a teacher. You need to know if you're going to be teaching in elementary or secondary, what you want to teach and how you want to teach it. So today I want to talk about the top 10 pros and cons for working in a secondary school. So starting off, we're going to get into our first pro, and that is you get to teach an area that you are interested in and passionate about and have studied in. You're not just a generalist like you are in an elementary classroom. And this can be a lot of fun for yourself, but it can also be a lot of fun for your students. Because in secondary school, your students have the choice of what courses they take. So if you're teaching chemistry or biology or senior mathematics or even senior gym, your students have chosen to be there. That's what they're interested in. And they have a goal to go to a post-secondary institution that aligns with that course. So again, they're going to be super engaged and they want to be there and listen to you. Now the second pro is that you only teach a couple of classes each term. And one of the reasons why this is so beneficial is rather than planning like 6 lessons a day like you would in elementary, what ends up happening is you might have 2 grade 12 chemistry courses and a grade 11 biology course. So I only need to prep for 2 classes, and often those classes run multiple times a day. Or I repeat those classes term after term. Now, this extra time, instead of spending it on lesson planning, what we can do is take a little bit of it, just a little bit, and instead move it towards planning more cool projects and assignments. And you get to do some really cool stuff here because it's stuff that you're passionate about and interested in. It's stuff that your students are passionate about and interested in. And that means that everyone is more engaged and everyone is going to do better because of that. Also, it doesn't hurt that you're going to be in a better mood and it's easier to mark and you're not going to be as stressed. But let's move on to my fourth pro, and it actually has something to do with time as well. And that is the fact that you're going to be sharing your course, sometimes with multiple teachers. And one of the reasons why this is so cool is the fact that you have access to each other's notes and lesson plans and lessons. You have access to their assignments and their expertise. Things that normally you wouldn't have if you were working on your own. And I think one of the nicest things here is that you can talk about your assignments with each other, you can plan better assignments, and ultimately what this means is that you can split the time and share the workload on creating all of these major assessments and tests and projects and quizzes or whatever you're doing, which, as I just mentioned, saves you a lot of time. Now, another benefit that I think is super important, especially in secondary school, it's the fact that you're dealing with students who are much more mature. Now, one of the nice things about working with mature students is the fact that these students are able to handle difficulties. They have that perseverance and resiliency to push through a lot of things that they might have found difficult. And what that means is that they're able to effectively troubleshoot problems. They don't get frustrated. And sometimes they can even handle failure and bounce back from that, learning what they need to do better next time. And just on the point of maturity, you don't have that many behavioral issues in your secondary school classroom. Students have grown up in social environments. They are constantly socializing with each other and learning how to act in different class settings and outside of the school. And just in general, knowing how to conduct themselves saves you from having a lot of the headaches that you do in elementary school, where students decide they don't want to work and it's very hard to try to convince them, hey, we should do this. But also, as we're talking about maturity and not dealing with issues with students, we do have to come to our first con. And that is that when you do have a behavioral issue with a student, it's often very complex and often needs a team of teachers, administrators, and other school supports to try to help that student. It's not just as simple, this person's having a bad day today and doesn't want to do work. These are often situations and behaviors that can escalate. Now, again, it's important to remember these situations don't happen very often, but when they do happen, they're pretty much always exhausting to deal with. You feel a lot of emotions as a teacher, you want to help in every way possible, but sometimes that isn't your role. Sometimes you just need to be there to support a student or listen to them instead of trying to fix the problem itself. And sometimes the problem isn't something that can be fixed anyways. And on that note, I want to move on to my second con. And that is that you might have less to lesson plan. But lesson planning is often much more difficult than you think it is in a secondary setting. Some of the reasons behind this are the fact that you need to address multiple concepts in a single lesson, and you just have a lot to teach that you're always trying to cram in. Also, one of the issues with preparing for a secondary school classroom is the idea that you might need to do research on these topics if you haven't taught them before. And especially as a new teacher, you can spend a lot of time doing that. If you aren't up to speed on your grade 11 chemistry, and you need to learn all these specific little concepts, it can sometimes take half an hour to learn that concept, to anticipate questions that students are going to have, and also to put together a set of problems that you can work through students to solve. But again, luckily, there are always teachers to help you along the road. You're going to be sharing the courses with teachers, or you know a teacher that's previously taught that course and can lend you some materials. So while it does look like you need to spend a lot of time lesson planning, at the same time, that lesson planning can sometimes be made easier. And now, also speaking of lesson planning, I want to come to my third con, and that is the fact that the secondary school curriculum is very, very restrictive. The curriculum contains so many little minute details and concepts that they want you to teach students, and you're going to run out of time if you take it slowly. You need to pack so much into each lesson and each unit that it can sometimes be very overwhelming to try to figure out, how am I going to get through all of this? But still, to be honest, you only have to teach the big ideas for the course that are outlined in the curriculum. So while there are a lot of expectations that you need to cover, as long as you cover the big ideas, you should be okay. And now I want to come to my fourth and final con. And while it doesn't happen often on a daily basis, this can be one of the most frustrating things to deal with. And that can be a parent. Now, most of the parents are good. Most of the parents are on the teacher's side, and they want their students to be able to learn, to grow, to develop, and they support the teacher with many of the things that you tell them their student needs to improve on. However, maybe 1 in 20 parents can be a little difficult to deal with. They want their student to get into X school, and to do that they need X grade in your classroom, and you need to give it to them because you are their teacher, and that student always hasn't deserved that mark. I can't go in and change students' marks, or forget about a mark that maybe they didn't do the best on. That's just unfair to all of the other students in my class. While I'm committed to helping that student improve, I need to see an improvement on their end. You can't just tell me that I need to change their mark to something more palatable to universities and colleges. Now, with that said, me personally, I am a pretty easy marker, I would like to say, and I just like to see that students understand the big ideas. I don't like to kill them on all these little tiny issues or little tiny concepts. Doesn't mean that they're not important to know and that they won't help you, but I think the big ideas are so much more important to understand. But again, parents can be frustrating, but there is some easy ways to deal with that. And the first one is to always have constant communication with them. Let them know once a month how their student is doing in the course, or if they have any outstanding assignments or homework that they need to do. See if the parents will enforce some of that behavior and get their students to learn those skills at home, not just in the classroom. But anyways, those are my top 10 pros and cons for teaching in a secondary school classroom or a high school classroom. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you stick around for some more cool videos that are coming down the pipeline. Also, I want to welcome the few subscribers that we had in the past week to this channel. Thank you for joining us, and welcome. But with that said, as always, stay happy, safe, and healthy, and I'll see you all around. Bye!